Everybody, and welcome back to the course of world history. I am Mr. Samuelson, and today we are looking at Mughal influence. This is a look at the culture and society of the Mughal Empire at its peak and at its decline. So our essential question is, what caused the rise and the fall of Mughal influence over the culture of India? So, the Mughal Empire. The Mughal Empire unified India as a single empire for over 300 years. Now, they didn't always control this maximum territory, but the larger chunk of India, the more populous areas of India, were under Mughal control for that 300-year period. Now, under Mughal rule, especially under the leadership of this handsome fella right here, Akbar the Great, India was internally at peace and prosperous. They had a really good thing going. This internal peace and prosperity typically leads to the flowering of any culture, and we see that happening here as well. Now, Akbar really serves as the best example of a Mughal leader for why their culture was successful. Akbar the Great really wanted to unify his people and bring his leading group into an empire that could live peacefully with its own inhabitants. Akbar believed that toleration was at the center of that success. And so he instituted policies that invited toleration of ethnic differences, of religious differences, of cultural differences, to tie people together. You could live the life you wanted to live under Akbar's rule. So under his rule, and that of many of his later emperors, Mughals grew into one of the most powerful empires in the world at that time. Now, religion here is key to that policy of tolerance. Mughals believed in the free practice of religion. Now, the leaders themselves were mostly Sunni Muslims, and every now and again you get a little dabbling in some other faiths. But for the most part, this was a Sunni Muslim empire. Akbar, however, realized that his Persian subjects were looking for their leaders to be a somewhat semi-divine figure, which is not the case in Sunni Islam, but he adopted some of that and put on some of the trappings of a godlike ruler. Non-Muslims within the society, however, were granted full freedom of religion, and unlike the free religion seen in the Ottoman Empire, where non-Muslims had to pay a special tax and were banned from certain services, within Mughal society, there was no additional tax. There was no banning of different religions participating in different professions. It was a society of free religion. So the Mughals, at the height of their empire, Akbar's rule, were extremely powerful and extremely influential. His just leadership, the just leadership of Akbar, united these different factions and came to see Indians as this united Muslim, Hindu, whatever group. This brings about internal peace within those borders. And this internal peace, as we've seen everywhere, allows for a calm, peaceful, well-ordered society. And in this well-ordered society, taxes could be regularly and safely collected, and importantly, kept at rates that were seen as reasonable by most members of society. Now, outside of this, even during their great periods, the Mughals were not extensive traders. They preferred to have others come to them and trade goods with them. So we don't see great trading expeditions of the Mughals, but they rather are a pass-through for many goods. But they do take some time to develop industries that we'll see in a moment. Within their more peaceful society, of course, we see a flourishing of art and architecture, as we do with any society that is internally at peace and fairly wealthy. In their art and their architecture, the Mughals wanted to blend both Hindu and Persian Islamic societies, styles to create something that was a little bit their own and a little more distinctive. And this also went along with their policy of cultural tolerance and incorporating the ideas of others, as they wanted their architecture to show this mix and this blend. So under Akbar's direction, Persian art masters trained the most talented Hindu painters within their society at a school that was set up by his government, the Mughal School of Painting. And they produced wonderful art that was a blend of these two different styles. In architecture, the Taj Mahal, this building down here, was seen as one of the best examples of architecture in the world, not just at that time, but on to today. Many still consider that structure to be one of the most beautiful ever created. Just for context, it was created as a mausoleum, that is a place for placing the dead, by the Shah Jahan, designed specifically to house his wife and then later him as well. Closer look at the Taj Mahal here, you can kind of see what it's known for. This pristine white structure, delicate features, and yet tremendously large. You can see people down here for a sense of scale, how big this place was, although it appears kind of light and delicate. Mughal women. Mughal leaders brought their tribal customs to India. Mughals were Mongol in their ancestry. And within these tribal societies, we see women at a higher status than in many settled societies. Mughal women were relied on for political and economic advice, even though they never typically held power. They were advisors to those who did. As the Mughals came in, upper-class Hindus do adopt the Mughal practice of isolating women at home, of being a little bit more Islamic in that character, and that women, don't have this visible public life. But they also advantaged women by ending a Hindu practice, or trying to end a Hindu practice that was common at the time, of when a husband dies, the husband's widow was burned at her husband's funeral. That is, they would take the woman would, right here, you can see, be placed upon the burning pyre of her husband's funeral, thus burning her alive. This practice was highly discouraged by the Mughals. Mughal economy, again, internal peace leads to economic strength. The Mughals do build roads to help move goods internally from one place to another. Originally, it is building roads to help reach the Silk Road up in Kandahar, modern Afghanistan. But later it becomes building roads to carry goods to the sea, to exchange goods with Europeans. The top cash crops were spices and tea that were grown for export. And Mughal merchants largely relied on Europeans, especially the British, to purchase and transport these goods, especially as the Silk Road trade, as we've mentioned in other lessons, begins to slow. But this invitation to the British, bringing the British in, is a warning sign of the decline of the empire. Power struggles within the Mughal royal family cause the empire to begin its decline, shows these signs of weakness. And while the Mughals are kind of distracted with these internal power plays, Europeans, English in particular, begin to assert influence. And by the mid-1800s, we're going to now call them the British because they are called the British by now, do essentially rule India in their place. They've leveraged their power and expanded it so that at this point they do control most of India and have a lot of influence in those areas that are still under local control. All right, that is all for today. I do hope you learned something, and I will see you next time. Farewell.